Hi, my fellow target individuals, patriotic Americans. I'm going to be making 3 statements in this YouTube video. Number 1, I'm going to talk about something I've just watched today while I was eating my vegetarian Italian dinner, which is about Devil May Cry. Number 2, the statement I'm going to be making, or point, is that I think Christianity and religious mindsets are destroying and are detrimental towards the target individual community and the conspiracy theorist or truther communities. And why? Number 3 statement I want to be making is that I do not consent to what I am going through. I don't consent being a target individual or non-consensual human experiment / enemy of the state. I just watched an anime adaptation of the video game series that I never played called Devil May Cry, and a lot of people are hating it because it wasn't true to the source material. They say that the demons in Devil May Cry are too humanized, and that the characters aren't the way they actually are in the video game. The only problem I have with it is that the lady character, Mary, she was changing too much sides in the anime. She went to hating demons, and then she went to having some sympathy for the demons because what the demons were going through were what she used to go through and see happen in her tragic childhood. And then she went back to hating the demons again, and she led the evil villain, one of the evil villains in the anime, which is the Vice President of the United States of America. She let him have and detain Dante and his stuff, and Dante was just being a hero, saving people's lives. And this fucking evil vice president, who looks a little bit like Joe Biden in the anime, he locked Dante up. He's a hero who saved the fucking vice president of the United States of America. Why is he being locked up when he did nothing wrong? I hate it. The vice president in the anime more than I hate the rabbit in the anime, because he was being very disrespectful and he was being a bigot as well to Dante, because Dante had half demon blood in him when he was just being a good guy. I understand that people who play video games don't like it when people make an anime adaptation of your video games and the characters are not well developed and not well written, along with not being true to the source material. But the Devil May Cry anime still had a lot of evil demons. And I'm sorry if in the anime it doesn't say particularly that all demons are evil. I'm very sorry you're disappointed in that. But let's get real. If Dante's father and Dante, along with Dante's brothers, can be good guys, why can't the other demons in the hell realm, which isn't an actual hell, it's not the Bible hell, it's not this right here, and Satan and Lucifer doesn't even come up. I don't hear any biblical names. In the Devil May Cry anime, the demons never mention Lucifer, Beelzebub, or Satan, anything like that. Their names are all made up fictitious names. And it's all very made up and fictitious stuff. I don't see any fucking thing about the New Testament in the Bible or anything like that. It's just made up bullshit for the most part. And the demons in the anime, they would be extraterrestrial beings if they were real. I'm being real with you. They would be extraterrestrials, just from a different dimension, a different plane of existence. And they didn't even call themselves demons. They call themselves Mechaians, and they call their realms Mechai. There is no fucking word in the Bible, at least not in English anyway, that is Mechai. Nor is there Sparta at all. And I know that Dante's name probably comes from Dante's Inferno. But Dante and Dante's Inferno isn't even in the Bible. I don't think Dante's Inferno is in the Bible. It's not actual in the official King James Version of the Bible. Or any fucking modern day, highly well practiced and known version of the Bible. Meaning, technically, the demons that Devil May Cry are not even actual demons, for fuck's sakes. Because they're not biblically based off of real Bible stories, real Bible people in the actual Bible where Jesus and stuff comes from. Which means that anybody can say anything and make up any adaptation about Devil May Cry. It's not like there's a religious organization that has power over the Devil May Cry franchise and what you can do with it. And the demons in the Devil May Cry anime and video game, if they were real, if these beings were real, they would be extraterrestrial beings. And extraterrestrial beings are sentient, intelligent beings like us humans, and they have just as much right and capability by their own free will to choose good and evil. Meaning, saying that all demons in the Devil May Cry anime and video game universe are all evil is a stupid idea. Because they're not actual Bible demons, and in real life, the actual term to call them is extraterrestrials. And extraterrestrial beings in real life have rights. They would have rights because they would be made from the same universe they were made from, and they would have just as much free will and variety as we humans do. There's different types of human beings. There's black, white, Hispanic. There's sex, gender orientation, and everything like that. And the different religions. The demons in the Devil May Cry anime probably have different religions in their world, and they probably view us as demons, and they probably call us demons from their perspective because we're detrimental evil monsters from their perspective because we've been detrimental evil monsters to them. And they don't even call themselves demons, they call themselves Makaians, and they call the world Makai. It's because of details, terminology, language. I'm a more intelligent person when I read and watch stuff. I don't view it from the same perspective that you Devil May Cry video game fans view the Devil May Cry anime, because it's a double standard hypocrite for a person to make or consume something such as a TV show and a movie, and they say, oh, this character is a half demon, half human, or half extraterrestrial, half human. They could be good. They can hang out with human beings and be good. They can hang out with both humans and extraterrestrials and be good to them. And then they're good guys, so why can't everybody else be a good guy? Why can't all the demons have the chance and an equal opportunity in the movie, TV, or anime series to be a good guy? Why don't they get the equal opportunity to be a good guy? Why can't they get to be a reformed character or a misunderstood character in general? Why can't they have human, half extraterrestrial being in an anime and movie who is the main character? If they're able to be good or evil, then that means all the human beings and the extraterrestrials in the human extraterrestrial hybrids can be good or evil. I'm just sick and tired of the main character bias that many fans have. This is what I call the main character bias, where you think the main character, because they're the main character, has more privilege and rights than the other characters to have good character development, and also to mean something in the story. And also, that's just bad story to write. That's a very bad story to write. If I wrote a story and if I had a main character who's a human demon hybrid or a human extraterrestrial hybrid, I would give them side characters that are also hybrids, and some characters that are demons, or pure-blooded demons or pure-blooded extraterrestrials who are good, in order to give the character more friends to be around with and more characters to chew on as far as story writing goes, and for my viewers to have more characters that they can think about and care about, because human beings like variety. And I like the rabbit character because he was just a guy getting vengeance for his family. His family were the Makaians. And the family that was his biological family looked like they abused him and didn't care about him and didn't understand him. That, imagine if an autistic person or a person that is a child prodigy who is abused by narcissistic parents gets abducted by extraterrestrials or gets adopted by demons. And those demons or extraterrestrials treated this child right. And he or she grew up to be a very highly adaptive and functional person. And imagine what would happen if the fucking United States military went in and destroyed his demon parents, his demon family, or his extraterrestrial parents, extraterrestrial family. It would be our fucking military that are the evil scumbags and lacking humanity, because we fucking murdered one of our own human, one of our fellow human beings or American citizens, the general's family, because their family members weren't humans. Their family members were demons or extraterrestrials that adopted them because they care about them, and they probably had a hard time as a species reproducing, and they decided, why don't we just show some mercy and have some decency and adopt a child who's being abused by his parents or her parents, because his or her parents are no different than we demons or extraterrestrials would be. They're fucking narcissistic monsters who should be shot up or arrested before they do any harm to anybody else. Yes. And I'm sick and tired of these TV shows, movies, and novels and anime not getting human nature right. The Devil May Cry fans talk about humanity and human nature, but I'm going to tell you one thing. Being evil is part of being human, because we humans have the free will to be evil. We have the free will to be pedophiles, serial killers, thieves, genocidal dictators like Hitler. Humans don't equal good. We're not Mary Sue, Gary Sue species. We're not holier than thou snowflakes. If we were holier than thou snowflakes and were perfect, we would call ourselves angel and say humanity angelanity or something like that. But we're not. So get the fuck about human beings being perfect out of your fucking heads. We're not perfect. But that is not a bad thing either. We're just not purely this or purely that. And sometimes being purely something is horrible, because perfection and purity can be very evil because it's unbalanced. It's like pure cold weather. Do you think pure cold weather, perfectly cold weather is good for anybody? No. Think perfectly hot weather is good for anybody? No. That's why there is no life in deserts and ice tundras up there in the Arctic, dumbass. Therefore, I would rather us humans have free will, acknowledge we have free will to be good or evil, and not be delusional and think, oh, we are only pure, peaceful, and good beings, or we're purely evil and violent beings, when we're not either one of those things, because we're both of those things. And that's a realistic perspective from scientific fact and observation. I'm not a religious person. I get shit and piss on Christianity, Islam, and Judaism all I want. I just tell them to go fuck themselves. And also, Devil May Cry fans who talk about humanity being all about love and shit like that. Well, we human beings are also filled with hate. Yeah, learn from the Uchiha clan from Naruto. They'll tell you a thing or two about humanity. If you want more realistic perspective of humanity in a TV show or movie or anime, go watch Naruto. Because from Madara and Sasuke and Obito Uchiha, quoting the Uchiha clan, if you are willing to love somebody so much, and if they wind up getting murdered by somebody, you're going to hate that somebody for taking that somebody away from you. That love turned to hatred, and that hatred turned to violence. Okay? And that's how things are in real life. And if you don't hate the person that would murder your own family members, then there is something wrong with you. You have less humanity than a demon would, because you won't get upset and angry at the person that murdered your people. Then that shows how much you really cared about your own family members when somebody murders your own family members, like the way Bruce Wayne's parents got taken over from him. And you don't have any hatred towards that person at all. That shows how much you care about your own family members or friends. They are basically dirt to you. And that's why the rabbit character was such a great character in the Devil May Cry anime. And I am actually kind of excited for season 2 of the anime. Oh, and then number 2 statement and point of this YouTube video. I think Christianity and religious dogmas are bad for the targeted individual community and the truther communities. They make us dangerous and detrimental to society. And I'm going to use the Devil May Cry anime that I just watched and I was kind of impressed by. I think it's kind of a good show, despite what the video game fans say. The video game fans don't care about creativity, and they also have human nature versus demon nature incorrect. They think we human beings are all good and love and fluff. I don't want to hear that fucking shit. Especially when I'm a targeted individual being tortured by my own government with direct energy weapons and have advanced syndrome. I don't want to hear that crap about human beings being about love and being all good and shit. I know better than that, bastards. I am getting a video ready for you to see. And this is a spoiler alert if you are thinking about watching the Devil May Cry anime. Skip 4 minutes in this video. At least 4 minutes and 30 seconds in this video I'm making.
When you dare to combine sweet and tart, you get a sweet tart throat.
Into hell during the global war on terror, with the World Trade Center still proudly and visibly standing in the background in some of the scenes of this invasion, as well as while Green Day's American Idiot plays in the background. You know, a song that is very much critical of the war in Iraq. So yes, it is 100% true that Netflix did indeed make a comparison between Arabs and literal demons from literal hell, while trying to paint the US as somehow villainous for invading literal hell and fighting literal demons in the process. I suspect you could see the very basic issue here. When you're trying to morally justify literal demons by comparing them to a real-life group of people, what you're instead going to ultimately accomplish is demonizing that particular group of people by saying that they're equally as moral as literal demons from hell, or rather, as immoral as literal demons from hell. No amount of spin is going to save your virtue signal at that point. And really all it accomplishes is that it demonstrates how the actual writers of the show really feel about Arabs when it comes down to it. Because if you look at a literal demon from hell and your first thought is that clearly must be a Muslim, well, that ultimately serves more as a commentary on your own worldview and how you view Muslims, doesn't it? But this, of course, shouldn't come as much of a surprise when it comes to progressive writers, as it has been the gold standard for progressive activists for a while. The same people who argued that black people are all orcs from D&D, that Jewish people are all Skaven from Warhammer Fantasy, that Slanesh is the god of trans people, and that a gay man who is not a pedophile is literally less of a gay man for not being a pedophile. And yes, those are all things that the progressives unironically believe. So hearing that they are now comparing Arabs to literal demons from hell is, quite frankly, completely par for the course. It's just the sort of thing that progressives do. But there is a little bit more to why progressives view the world in this manner. And if you ask me, it ultimately does still have to come down to the progressive belief that everything is political. Because if you believe that everything is political and therefore can be mapped onto real-life politics, then someone that truly believes that, when they look at an orc, is inevitably going to take up the position that orcs as a race must represent some real-life group of people. Because if they didn't, well, the progressive would have to admit that not everything is political after all. And the same is true.
Well,
with
everything
the
is
state
kind of
Warhammer
political.
Fantasy, Slaanesh as a chaos god in both Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k, or indeed the literal demons from hell in Devil May Cry. So yes, this whole entire situation is yet another case of a progressive activist shooting themselves in their own foot in the name of their own ideology, completely oblivious to just how damning it is to their ideology in the process as well. The intended message of the activists and the message they actually delivered are polar opposites. By presenting the literal demons from hell as the victims in the story, in their efforts to compare the demons to real-life Arabs in various Middle Eastern countries that have been fought over by the US during the global war on terror, the actual result actively makes the US look completely glorious and based for its efforts on the war on terror, because according to the show's activist writers, Arabs are completely morally comparable to literal demons from hell, and there's simply no meaningful way of walking that back, no matter how many demons you want to try to portray as somehow being just innocent migrants. If anything, on reflection, that is even worse when you think about it, because the show is essentially arguing that even the economic migrant Muslims that have fled to Europe are still perfectly comparable, morally speaking, to literal demons from hell. Clearly, Netflix has not thought this one through.
Well, actually, this guy got it wrong a little bit. It's not actual hell from the Bible in this anime. It's actually another plane or dimension called Makai. They call themselves Makaians, not demons. Oh, fuck. Look at this. They've been putting in my head shit about lizards. They call me a lizard person. And now look. Look, lizard people, rulers of time and space. That's so weird. They've been putting in my head with V2K that I'm a lizard person and I need to go and have sex with a lizard. And then hear what happens right here. That's really weird. But I'll look at the fucking movie. I'll put it in my
Sparkle is here to save the day and save you money.
Playlist. The reason why I don't like Christianity is because of the Salem witch trials and the Spanish Inquisition. And that's because Christians think that they have the right to destroy others because they demonize other people and call them heretics, blasphemers, pagans. I want to show you a video.
It's 1481. In the city of Seville, devout Catholics are turning themselves in to the authorities. They're confessing to heresy, failure to follow the beliefs of the Catholic Church. But why? The Spanish Inquisition has arrived in Seville. The Inquisition began in 1478, when Pope Sixtus IV issued a decree authorizing the Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, to root out heresy in the Spanish kingdoms, a confederacy of semi-independent kingdoms in the area that would become the modern country of Spain. Though the order came from the Church, the monarchs had requested it. When the Inquisition began, the Spanish kingdoms were diverse, both ethnically and religiously, with Jews, Muslims, and Christians living in the same regions. The Inquisition quickly turned its attention to ridding the region of people who were not part of the Catholic Church. It would last more than 350 years. On the ground, groups called
My fellow chartered individuals and patriotic Americans watching this, if you're a Christian, you are a Muslim watching this, your religions make this stuff happen. And this is why I don't like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam in the target individual community, because these religions divide and conquer, and they do more harm than good.
Tribunals
Look
ran
at
the
this shit.
Inquisition in each region. Roles on a tribunal could include an arresting constable, a prosecuting attorney, inquisitors to question the accused, and a scribe. A Grand Inquisitor, a member of the clergy selected by the king and queen, almost always led a tribunal. The Inquisition marked its arrival in each new place with an Edict of Grace. Typically lasting 40 days, the Edict of Grace promised mercy to those who confessed to heresy. After that, the inquisitors persecuted suspected heretics on the basis of anonymous accusations. So the confessors in Seville probably didn't see themselves as actual heretics. Instead, they were hedging their bets by reporting themselves when the consequences were low, rather than risking imprisonment or torture if someone else accused them later on. They were right to worry. Once the authorities arrested someone, accusations were often vague, so the accused didn't know the reasons for their arrest or the identity of their accuser. Victims were imprisoned for months, or even years. Once arrested, their property was confiscated, often leaving their families on the street. Under these conditions, victims confessed to the most mundane forms of heresy, like hanging linen to dry on a Saturday. The Inquisition targeted different subsets of the population over time. In 1492, at the brutal Grand Inquisitor Tomás de Torquemada's urging, the monarchs issued a decree giving Spanish Jews 4 months to either convert to Christianity or leave the kingdom. Thousands were expelled, and those who stayed risked persecution. Converts to Christianity, known as conversos, weren't even safe, because authorities suspected them of practicing Judaism in secret. The hatred directed at conversos was both religious and economic, as conversos made up a large portion of the upper middle class. The Inquisition eventually shifted its focus to the Moriscos, converts to Christianity from Islam. In 1609, an edict passed forcing all Moriscos to leave, an estimated 300,000 left. Those who remained became the Inquisition's next targets. The Inquisitors announced the punishments of those found guilty of heresy in public gatherings called autos de fe, or acts of faith. Hundreds of people gathered to watch the procession of sinners, mass, sermon, and finally the announcement of punishments. Most of the accused received punishments like imprisonment, exile, or having to wear a San Benito, the garment that marked them as a sinner. The worst punishment was relaxado en persona, a euphemism for burning at the stake. This punishment was relatively uncommon, reserved for unrepentant and relapsed heretics. Over 350 years after Queen Isabella started the Inquisition, her namesake, Queen Isabella II, formally ended it on July 15, 1834. The Spanish kingdom's dependence on the Catholic Church had isolated them, while the rest of Europe experienced the Enlightenment and embraced the separation of church and state. Historians still debate the number of people killed during the Inquisition. Some suggest over 30,000.
30,000. This is why I hate Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. We target individuals. We're already being genocided by the deep state shadow government. And now we're going to add a genocidal ass religions in here and stab each other in the back and treat each other like shit because of fucking religious differences. Get the fuck out of here.
And 2000. The consequences of the Inquisition, however, reach far beyond fatalities. In some places, an estimated 1/3 of prisoners were tortured. Tortured,
yeah. And we already are being tortured with no-touch torture technology, my fellow target individuals. We don't want to practice, and we shouldn't practice religions thinking it's okay to torture people because they don't worship the same God that you do, or have the same values that you do.
Minorities were forced to leave their homes, and those who remained faced discrimination and economic hardship. Smaller inquisitions in Spanish colonial territories in the Americas, especially Mexico, carried their own tolls. Friends turned in friends, neighbors accused neighbors, and even family members reported each other of heresy. Under the Inquisition, people were condemned to live in fear and paranoia for centuries. Travel to Mexico to meet Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, a rebellious nun.
Yeah, that's the reason why I do not like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Because the stuff that Muslims, Jews, and Christians do to each other and to the world, because their religions say that they have the right to dominate and conquer others that don't worship the same God that they do. Many target individuals that think that they can be saved and be conned because they think they can be saved are target individuals, are Christians. Christian target individuals can be conned by people way more than pagans, atheists, Luciferians, and Satanists target individuals. And that's because they don't have the saying that goes, take everything with a grain of salt, because they don't even take their religion with a grain of salt, and they're going to let a person con them because they didn't put their thinking cap on, have enough critical thinking skills not to fall for it. Christians can be tricked into doing all kinds of things that are very stupid and delusional. Muslims as well, and Jews. I've had a few friends in my life that were Jews, and I didn't have a good experience with them. One was a boy, an orphan boy, that was adopted out somewhere else and moved very far away. Another one was a target individual who was a nurse. She was Jewish, but I don't think that she had enough intelligence of what being a target individual is. And she also thought Israel was good, even though Israel is the one that's targeting us, targeting individuals. Israel is part of torturing us. Because our government, the United States government, doesn't represent us, the American people. It represents Israel through IPAC, because we have a bunch of Christian religious nut jobs in the government that are Zionists that think that Jews have the right to rule the world and stuff like that. There's even Christians trying to fight over being the perfect Messiah for the Jews, especially if they're Jews themselves or half Jewish. I'm being hit with a microwave weapon. It's making me sleepy. I don't know why I feel like this, because I didn't feel this shitty the first 10 minutes to 20 minutes that I started this video. But then I'm being hit because of talking about Christianity being bad. Getting readings to see if I'm being hit right now. .06. I don't even know why I feel like I'm getting a little bit lethargic as well. These weapons I'm being hit with are really making me feel messed up. I'm going to check the time to see how much more minutes I have to make a video. It's 7:10 p.m. My family are going to get home soon. I have at least a few to over 10 minutes to talk. Then number 3, discussion statement and point that I'm making. I don't consent to being a targeted individual. I do not consent to having my mind read by my perps that are the Illuminati, aka Cabal, Deep State, and the Shadow Government with direct energy weapons, V2K, and synthetic telepathy technology. I do not consent to no-touch torture, psychotronic weapons, Havana syndrome. I do not consent to it. I also do not consent to Zionism, the Jesuits, and all divine right to rule religions. I do not consent to theocracy. I do not consent to any form of tyranny and evil. And I mean, and I absolutely am using the word tyranny and evil in the scientific, secular, and objective lens terminology. I'm using the word tyranny and evil from a scientific and objective terminology. I do not consent to tyranny and evil by the objective, absolute definitions of those words. I don't consent to illegal spying of Americans. I don't consent to the Patriot Act. What the fuck are those dogs getting mad at? Or barking at? My mom's not home. I also do not consent to prohibition of any drug. People have the inalienable right to use any drug under the sun that they want to use. They have the right to use marijuana, magic mushrooms, and alcohol because that is their inalienable right to autonomy. I do not consent to abortion bans. That is the business between a woman and her doctor on whether she gets an abortion or not. I do not consent to any ban on any medical procedure or medicine at all. That is between a doctor and their patient on what procedure and or medication that should be used to cure and or treat the patient from any disease. And I do not consent to people's thoughts and feelings of the world being labeled as mental illness as a form of tyranny to take away a person's right to bodily autonomy and a right to think and feel whatever the hell they want to think and feel about the world, even if they choose to feel bad about it. That's what I do not consent to. I, as a patriotic American and a target individual, I stand firmly on the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution for the separation of church and state, for secularism, for the freedom of religion, thought, and also for the freedom of privacy, for a person's right to be not messed with by a damn government. And that's what I stand by. And this is what I don't consent to: tyranny and evil. I do not consent to a person's free will and life being taken away from them. I do not consent to a person's free will and life being taken away from them. I do not consent to a person's free will and life being taken away from them. I do not consent to a person's free will and life being taken away from them. Today I could have made this video an even better one if I wasn't being hit with whatever weapon it was today and suffering some of the side effects from the MCT oil that I've been taking and didn't know that it was making me feel sick. I am going to end the video right now because I have some other things I need to do, and my mom and brother are going to be getting home soon. Talk to you later. Take care and have a good night or evening, depending on your time zone. Bye.